podcast. We do recover with Jared Miller, your host.
And I'm Dr. Terry Sellers, your co-host.
This is a podcast about recovery from addiction.
We want to talk about what successful recovery can look like.
Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn.
All right, happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. We do recover with Jared Miller. I'm your co-host, Dr. Terry Sellers. Now, we have an interesting episode today because our normal host, Jared Miller, is out of town. Now, for those of you that listen to this podcast, Jared does almost all of the work. Okay, I sit here and throw out like stupid comments every once in a while. Jared does all the heavy lifting. He's the detail guy. He's the pusher. I show up and pretend to be like an expert or a comedian, one of those two. Right? And so because he's out of town, I have this job. So I'm apparently going to be the host. But I can't do it by myself. So we have a special guest co-host, John Redd, who's been on the podcast before. John Redd is here as our co-host. And John, just say hi, introduce yourself.
Yeah, grateful to be here. For those of you expecting Jared, I'm sorry.
You're way better looking than Jared.
I'm making my amends now. I actually reached out to Jared because we were going to be down in St. George, and I thought, hey, this would be a great opportunity for Ryan to be on a podcast. So I thought it would kind of be funny. And what happened in that process is it entirely backfired on me because Jared said, oh, I'm going to be out of town, but why don't you guest host it? And I thought, no, that wasn't the plan at all.
No.
Like
I'm
this
trying to
is
get
a
Ryan suckered
moment.
onto the podcast.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with me, but somehow Jared suckered me into it. Yes.
Yeah. Well, welcome.
Yeah, grateful to be here.
Welcome. Briefly, we have we're going to do sponsorship mention in just a second, but I want to introduce today's guest. We have Ryan Brown on the podcast. Ryan,
hi.
Say hi to the folks.
Hi, everybody.
There's like four
I'm
people
Ryan Brown.
listening, so say hi to them. Now, the other thing that we have special today is our producer, Sean Denovan, is out of town. So we got Max Christensen in the house.
Thank you, Max.
Max is here.
Hey, great to be here with you guys, man. It's an honor and a pleasure to always listen to the doctor talk a little bit about his drugs. So
you guys, if you listened last week, Max just started as a sort of student intern here in the podcast studio. Max plays football for what we now call Utah Tech. Used to be Dixie, but can't call it that anymore. So Utah Tech, and so Max is a defensive end, and he likes raining terror on quarterbacks. So we're not going to be quarterbacks today.
No, not today.
No, we're going to be kind.
Did you know BYU plays Dixie this year? Not Dixie. BYU plays Utah Tech this year.
I did not know that.
Max is gonna like break our quarterback's neck.
yeah, you know the score might be a little lopsided, but hopefully I can make a couple plays.
There you go. There you go. Knock a few people down.
Yep.
That's all you can do. All right. So first of all, segment one, sponsored by our good friends, Steps Recovery Center. John, you got something about Steps Recovery Center?
Yeah, I absolutely do. So Steps, they are ready to help you or a loved one as soon as you're ready to reach out. You can call them at 801-800-8142 or check out their website at stepsrc.com. And we just want to say thank you for Steps for sponsoring the podcast.
Yep.
We could not do it without you.
Steps has always been good to us.
Absolutely.
They allow us to have this studio free of charge. It's not free of charge, but it's free of charge because Steps pays for it. So that's nice. And I've been on a few podcasts in my life, and this is the nicest as far as the studio and the engineering and that sort of stuff. So Steps provides that for us, and we appreciate them.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we always start our podcast with a segment we call New and Good. Okay? So we're going to go around the room, and we're going to see what's new and good. John, why don't you start? Anything in your life new and good?
Yeah, it seems like I've got so much going on that it's kind of amazing to me the life I get to live today. It's the things that you'd read about or that you hear about with other people seem to be happening in my life. So in the process of setting up a treatment center, my kids are doing really well. Had opportunities to connect with them. I had a birthday, so I'm officially much older, so I'm 48.
I got shoes that old.
I doubt that. No, but
don't doubt it. I think I probably do.
In the car ride today, he said he's 2 years away from a half century.
Yeah. Which is a lot. So, but it's
I can't even remember hitting the half century mark. That's so long ago.
No, and I remember when I turned 40, and I remember I was active in my addiction. I wasn't around, like there weren't people around to celebrate it. And this year so on Sunday I turned 48, and it was just one of those things that made me stop and just kind of appreciate all the people that show up in my life.
Yeah.
And I cannot believe the life I get to live today.
Yeah.
And so that's probably my new and good for this week.
Beautiful.
And that I get to be a co-host on a podcast. And
Beautiful.
quite candidly, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah,
But
neither do I. So it's
I'm happy
okay.
to show up.
I've been on this podcast a lot, and I still don't know what I'm doing, so don't worry about it.
Perfect.
Jared and I have this. We're just two goofballs talking about recovery. That's it. I mean, that's what it is.
That's awesome.
That's what the podcast is supposed to be. So,
I
Ryan,
know you guys well enough. I can agree to that.
yeah, for sure. At least the two goofballs part. I don't know about the talking about recovery, but Ryan, what's new and good in your life? Anything?
This is definitely new, and we'll see if it's good.
You ever been on a podcast before?
I have not. This
Oh.
will be my first.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's two goofballs, but in this case, three
Three
goofballs
Yeah, for sure. For
talking
sure
about recovery.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
don't get uptight about it.
I'm
We're
not.
just here
I'm definitely
yapping.
not uptight. I'm excited.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good. Anything new in your life that's interesting?
Well, John and I are.
Tell me what you're doing down here in St. George this weekend.
We're golfing a lot.
Oh my god!
You know?
How good is that?
Well, let me define golf. It's trying to hit a white ball.
Oh come on!
You
I
know.
saw you guys hit the ball. Like these two guys, my
Trying.
guest co-host and my guest. I'm out there trying to hit the ball, and they're like, I hit the best drive of my life, and then John Red is out there like 120 yards in front of me, and Ryan's out there 120 yards in front of me. These guys hit the ball, so that's fun. It's nice to be younger.
It is fun, but
I know you think you're 48, but you ain't 62.
So there's that.
Doesn't go as far.
No,
I can tell you that.
no,
But sometimes goes straighter.
yours is very straight.
Yeah, occasionally.
Yeah.
When I hit the ball. All right. Well, John, you want to ask me what's new and good in my life?
Yeah, what's new and
Oh,
good, Doc?
well, I'm down in St. George playing golf with two really good friends. That's really that's got if for the people that listen to this podcast, I talk about golf a lot because it's my favorite activity to do at this point in my life, right? But we have a tournament tomorrow that we're playing in. That's going to be really fun, and we went out and just kind of had a practice round today and hit the ball about 40-mile-an-hour winds at Coral Canyon. It was really windy.
Yeah.
Windy, but it was a blast.
It was a blast. Max, you're sitting over there. What's new and good in your life? We can't let you just sit over there.
All right, hey, what's new and good in my life? You know, this right here,
Yeah.
everything.
This is
all
new.
All this technology is
Yeah.
new and good. Very, very new to me, learning it still. So again, appreciate you guys letting me be a part of this. Another thing, I guess that's new and good for me. This is my plug for the show. I actually just signed an NIL deal a couple days ago, being a college athlete.
Wow.
With Zeppe's. They're a frozen ice and shaved ice custard place here in St. George.
Sweet.
So if you guys are looking for any kind of treat, have a little sweet tooth, want the shaved ice or the custard or a combination of them both, that's my favorite. The Tiger's Blood Gelada over at Zeppe's. Just tell them Max sent you and they'll set you up. So.
Way to get the plug in.
Yeah.
Dude. I like that.
Yes,
That's
sir.
good.
Yes, sir.
Max is sitting over there with like 8,000 buttons that he can
Yeah,
push
man.
right there. Like he's got enough buttons to blow up the world, but
Yep.
he looks like he knows what he's doing, but man, that's a lot of buttons, dude.
Hey, fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah, right. So far, we're doing fine.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get this thing kicked off. Ryan
Sounds
Brown.
good.
Ryan Brown is our guest. Tell us about, let's just start with Ryan Brown.
Okay.
What do you got? Who are you? Tell us a little bit about your family. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing, that sort of stuff.
So I grew up in Farmington, Utah. Haven't moved much further than that.
Okay.
Served a 2-year mission in Hong Kong. Grew up LDS. And had
Wait, you were LDS and served a mission?
yeah,
I didn't know those two went
unbelievable.
hand in hand.
Huh?
That is weird.
Unbelievable.
That's weird.
And living in Hong Kong for 2 years and had a great experience. Loved it. And yeah, so Davis County, born and raised, and not further than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Davis County boy.
yeah, and so
So tell us about childhood. Like what was, tell me, brothers and sisters, family, that sort of thing. What was
I'm the
growing up
oldest
like?
of 3.
Okay.
So you and I talked about this on the golf course today, but
I'm going to pretend like we didn't.
Okay, pretend like we didn't, so I
I'm
can
learning
tell
this all
everybody
then
else
first-
again.
yeah,
Yeah, first
exactly.
time.
Wow, really?
Oldest of 3. I have a younger brother, younger sister.
Okay.
And grew up in a great home.
Okay.
My mom and dad were, very, very good parents, and a lot of people that I meet in recovery have had,
horrible childhoods.
Childhoods,
Right.
and that's not my story, So one of the things that you learn in recovery is accountability.
Yeah.
And it's easy to blame other people.
Well, for
right?
sure.
And that's not part of my story.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think that, if you look at drug addicts, which we're not supposed to call them because that's not a kind term, but I'm okay calling myself a drug addict. But when we look at people that struggle with substance abuse, a lot of them have had traumatic childhoods.
For
That's
sure.
pretty common. But it's not universal.
yeah,
Like, that's not a prerequisite.
yeah,
The prerequisite is you got to take drugs.
yeah,
That's the prerequisite.
and like
right?
it a lot.
And really enjoy it. Yeah. Everybody learns to enjoy that. So,
Yeah.
so you grew up not doing that.
Right.
Okay.
Not at all.
Got through high school pretty
yeah.
okay. Not
Nothing in high
not
school.
a party kid really.
No.
or-
Friend group. Anytime anybody needed a designated driver, call Ryan. Went to USU for a semester before my mission. Call Ryan. I was in the Sigma Chi fraternity and would get calls at 3-4 in the morning.
Come pick me up.
Come pick me up, man.
All right.
And I'm like, wow.
You got to
Like,
have a nice, reliable
this is
Mormon
called
to pick you up.
Yeah. This is called having a good time. I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do remember having those thoughts that, man, that's just not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I had a
things
similar
change.
thing in med school.
Yeah.
Like, people would invite me to parties in med school all
Yeah.
the time. I wasn't using at that point in my life, and people would have parties all the time, and they'd invite me, and I'm like, it's just all about alcohol. Like, I'm not interested. And
Yeah.
it's not about the alcohol. Okay, so if there's no keg there, are you going to the party? Well, no, we wouldn't go to that party. Well, then
Yeah.
it's all about the alcohol.
Right.
I don't want to go watch you guys get sloshed and make silly fools of yourself, and then I get to drive you home. Like,
I remember the
that
first.
didn't sound like fun to me.
Yeah, I remember the first time we had a kegger of sorts at this party.
Okay.
And I remember feeling like, wow, I've got to get myself out of here. I can't be here.
Right.
And I remember that vividly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
and I don't relate to this conversation at all. I'm the guy who would call Ryan.
Yeah. Come
Like,
pick me up.
Yeah, come pick me up.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so keep going.
Takes all
this
kinds.
Yeah.
takes all kinds.
Right.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of different people represented here.
Yeah. And, growing up in Farmington, Utah, there wasn't very many I didn't have that temptation.
Right.
Most
Most of your friends didn't use it.
of my friends didn't.
Right.
I was around it, but it wasn't like any kind of temptation to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, what happened?
well,
You didn't make it all the way through unscathed, apparently.
no, I didn't. It started off with, I started a company called Ideal Practice in 2002.
Okay.
And
Where's Ideal Practice? go?
Ideal Practice started off as a business management for physicians. I came from a billing company, was selling billing services while I was getting my degree.
Okay.
Got my degree in marketing, and some of those senior level classes, you don't get to pick your times. You need a job that kind of works with it.
Right.
So I could sell, and I very outgoing, very I've never been like somebody that's quiet. I've always been kind of the loudmouth of the party. So so I loved meeting people. I loved solving problems. I did well in school. I think I graduated with 3.93 or something like that.
Whoa.
And so it, like, all those things that you hear other recovering people with childhood problems, that wasn't me. My issue was the perfectionism. Like,
Okay.
I was the checkbox kid.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So my issue was I didn't feel like there was any grace in the world for less than perfection, and especially being the oldest of the family. I was the first one to graduate with a degree, first one to go to college type of thing, and always just kind of felt like this. It wasn't from my parents necessarily. It wasn't like a shaming thing. It wasn't helicoptering parents or anything like that. It was just I felt like I needed to do my best.
Okay.
And even when my best wasn't good enough. I needed to excel past that, you know.
You don't feel like that was a push from your parents at all? That
No.
that was internal.
That was internal.
Okay.
And
So you always got to do
you know,
really good. You always have to be the best.
Yeah.
So you got to beat other people.
Uh-huh.
Competitive.
Super competitive.
Okay.
Even though a lot of times my athletic ability or my, you know, ability to get good grades wasn't the best.
Right.
I wanted to be the best.
Right. So you're going to try harder than the other guy.
Right. You know, when I was a shooting guard, and when I remember somebody telling me, you know, in basketball, if the ball's not going in the net, you can just up your defense, you know?
Yeah, sure.
So more effort.
Right.
And this comes into play a little bit later in life, because when, you know, I'm full-blown alcoholic and going through it, like, you just need to exert yourself more, you know, try harder, you know? So.
Yeah. All right. So still haven't heard you starting to use drugs yet.
Yeah. So what happened was, you know, starting this company, Ideal Practice, working with doctors, starting up their facilities, starting up their practices. I met a lot of good friends that were MDs, you know.
Okay.
And one night I was on a church function with the young men of the ward, and we went night snowboarding, and I remember it was at Brighton, and I was showing off, and again, you know, be that center of attention, snowboarder. Right?
Right.
Yeah. So I tried to do a 50-50 on a rail, and it had iced over, and that was back in the day when the rails were actually metal.
Okay.
You know, now we have like.
Are they not metal anymore?
No, they're
I'm
not.
a skier or
like
a
they found out
snowboarder.
that apparently it's a safety hazard. So, and I was proof of that because I broke my back.
Yeah. Who knew?
Yeah,
Apparently a safety hazard.
apparently.
Yeah. Says the guy laying there with a broken back.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing is when I fell and I hit my back, and I broke my back. My teeth 3 through 5 was just shattered.
Okay.
Like you look at the X-ray and it's just like
Pieces of bone everywhere.
pieces everywhere.
Okay.
Right. I, again, like not willing to just give up. I actually snowboarded the rest of that night.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Then woke up the next day, couldn't move.
Yeah.
You know, and I knew something was wrong when I did it.
Yeah.
But I've never really broken a back before.
This is not necessarily the interesting part of the story, but I'm interested in the answer to this question.
Okay.
What are rails made of now that make them less dangerous?
More plastic and wider, you know?
Oh, they're wider?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And what's wrong with a rail freezing over? Wouldn't you want the rail to be slippery?
it makes it more slippery.
Too slippery.
Too slippery.
Okay, I got you.
So you're anticipating one thing.
You're anticipating hitting metal, you hit ice.
Yeah,
And
you
it just-
just
Okay.
right from underneath
Gotcha.
you.
That makes
Right.
sense. Okay.
So T through three
3 through 5.
5
Yeah.
gone. And then
Well, they're not gone. They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. they're within the body.
They're all there somewhere.
And you know, anybody that's broken a back before knows you cannot use your body without using your back.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's just
Sure.
it's rough. And so I didn't have a general physician. I didn't have like a family practice guy.
Okay.
I didn't need one.
Right, sure.
I had clients,
Sure.
right? And those clients were really good friends and just trying to help me, right? And I remember being in a particular doctor's office when the rep for OxyContin.
Oh, yeah. The good old OxyContin
Yeah.
reps.
Yeah, the OxyContin rep came in, and you know they always would splurge on lunches because
Sure.
they were cracking down
OxyContin
on
guys bought you good lunches.
right
Yes.
because you know the government kind of cut down on like the trips and the
Right.
incentives to prescribe
Back
this.
in the old days, this is before me. I never received a trip.
Yeah,
But they used to take doctors to Hawaii
For sure.
and pay for the whole thing. And
Right.
this was giantly influential in doctors' decisions making because you're going to prescribe the drug of the company that took you to Hawaii. For
Absolutely.
sure,
Right.
So the government decided they couldn't do that anymore. So,
But they had,
but you can bring lunches.
and John can speak to this as a medical sales rep, right? He knows that those budgets are huge,
right,
right?
right.
So the lunches weren't like McDonald's.
No. We never got McDonald's.
Yeah. It was not Burger King,
No.
not Subway.
Sometimes they'd travel to Park City to get something super nice to bring it all the way
Yeah,
back
Ruth's
to
Chris
us.
was,
Right.
I think that was on the menu for that day,
Common. Sure.
right?
Right.
So you did the lunch thing, but then you had to hear the
You had,
spiel.
you had to listen to the guy talk for 10 or 15
Yeah.
minutes. Yeah.
And these guys are just doing their job.
Salesman.
Yeah. And their
Job is to sell OxyContin. So how do they sell OxyContin?
they
You were there.
I was there. Yeah, I was witness to this, and I remember him saying, "The best part about this drug is it's not addictive, and the best part about that is that you don't have to worry about somebody showing up in rehab like you did with Lortab or any other drug at the time."
Now, we can all get really angry right now.
Yeah.
Right? It's pretty easy to get really angry. Those guys aren't the guys to get angry at.
No.
Because they were being told this. They were being told this drug is not
For sure.
addictive. They're out selling something their superiors have. Now, there's somebody up the chain that you can get mad at. But the salesman actually believed it was less addictive.
Yeah,
They believed that.
it was brand new, right?
They were being told that.
Like
Well,
it
it made sense that it was less addictive because it was covered with this protective coating. It's slowly time
you
released.
couldn't cut it up.
Right.
All
If you
those
cut it
things.
up, it all gets screwed up. And it's like, yeah, it makes sense. And it made logical sense to me as a physician that it was less addictive.
Yeah. Oh,
And that's how they sold it to us.
and for those doctors, a lot of people are like, well, my drug dealer was the white coat kind, like the lab coat going. My drug dealer wasn't on the street, wasn't on 4th South.
Right. His name was Dr. Terry Sellers or whoever.
Yeah, and
Right.
and so there's a I just heard that and I go, that's the drug for me. That's the drug. I'm in
It's
severe
not
pain.
addictive. It's good for severe pain.
I was in so much pain I couldn't even sit down for longer than an hour.
Right. And then the other selling point they gave to us was for my patients, like I'd have C-section patients, right? A C-section is, I used to be an OB for those that don't know that, but a C-section is a major procedure. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens a lot, so we kind of minimize it, but it's a big incision. It's a major surgery in the abdomen. And the guy would sell me and say, hey, you have to give your patient one pill in the morning and one pill at night, and that's it.
Easy.
That's all they need.
Yeah.
And so they don't have to take a pill every 3 hours. And, if they sleep through the night, they don't wake up in pain because it lasts all night.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a great drug.
Yeah.
Sounds-
I mean, it made
sounds
sense on
perfect.
paper, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so it was shortly after that meeting, like maybe within the hour, that I got my first script
From the doctor.
from the doctor.
From that office.
From that office.
Yeah.
Ruth Chris was awesome.
Yeah. Bruce Chris is good, but it's even better if you stuff a bunch of OxyContin inside of it, right?
And
we do make jokes on this podcast about drugs.
It's
but
okay.
It's
Yeah,
not
I
very
relate
funny.
to all that.
It ruined a few of our lives.
Yeah, I relate to all that. I was a cancer patient who got OxyContin back in 03.
Uh-huh.
Like all of this is what you're saying is something that I identify with entirely. And
Yeah.
it seemed to be like the solution. It was the solution.
This sounds like a great drug.
Yeah. At the time, like initially, it felt like the solution.
Right. Yeah.
yeah, I kind of imagine like when Coca-Cola had cocaine in it. It was this, that was a great drink.
That's a great drug right there. I mean, that's a great soft drink right there. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I have
Made
to drink,
sense.
Now I have to drink Dr. Pepper instead.
Yeah. Made sense at
No
the time.
cocaine in that. Yeah, sure. So you got your first prescription of OxyContin.
Yeah.
What was your...
And it worked.
Was that the first sort of pain prescription you got after you broke your back?
No, I had
Had you had something
Lortab,
already? Okay.
Right. And
Who'd you get that from? From an orthopedic surgeon or
No.
from an ideal practice buddy?
Yeah, buddy.
Like somebody you knew. Okay.
yeah, a client.
You never really went to...
No, I had never had a family doctor.
Did you not...
I think my first family doctor was like 5 years ago.
Wait a sec. Hold on. You have pieces of your back all over your back. We're almost out of time for this segment.
Oh,
but
sorry about that.
Did they not do surgery?
Oh no. I did go to, so I had some radiologists as clients as well. And they're like, man, you need to check with somebody on this. Oh, no, I don't. Because surgery then, takes away, at that point, it was like taking away, my tool,
Okay.
which was
Well,
that pain relief.
But you need pain relief after surgery.
Yeah, but then
But eventually
my
that'll go away.
mind, the way my mind worked at that time was that then it's going away.
Okay. All right. We're about out of time on this segment. We've got just a little bit left, but we got Ryan up to the point where he's starting to take opiates. And we'll take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back right after that.
You are listening to We Do Recover with Jared Miller and co-hosted by Dr. Terry Sellers. We'll be right back after this short break with more of We Do Recover with Jared Miller, sponsored by Steps Recovery Center and the Hilton Garden Inn.
I'm Desmond Lomax, one of the clinical executives here at Steps Recovery, and once you become of the Steps family, you're just a part of the Steps family. A lot of us have overcome substances, overcome addiction, and now we're able to help other people. Second of all, we're also going to help you in a way where you can afford to be helped. Third of all, we're going to give you the same quality that many organizations are charging 2 to 3 times, and it's more about you than it is about our organization.
We welcome you back to We Do Recover with Jared Miller, co-hosted by Dr. Terry Sellers. Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn. And now with part 2 of our podcast, Jared Miller and Dr. Terry Sellers.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. No Jared Miller on this show today. He's fishing, which
Good
is
for
cool.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
good for
kind of
him.
cool.
It's never
like
been cool to me.
I don't fish very much either. I
Yeah.
grew up in Florida where I did some deep sea fishing, but I never really learned
that
to
might be
freshwater fish.
Yeah.
It's a whole different game. Deep
don't-
sea fishing, you throw your thing in the water, you lay down on the bottom of the boat,
Yeah.
you drink a couple of beers, and you wait for the fish to bite.
Right.
I didn't drink, so I didn't actually drink growing up, so that wasn't too much of an issue with me. But essentially,
Again,
you
not
just
my story.
yeah, exactly right. You don't drink a couple of beers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and that was what I did growing up. So yeah,
No. So so that's kind of how I grew up. I grew up doing some fishing, but not freshwater fishing. I'm not a freshwater fisherman. You just throw out a big chunk of meat on a giant hook and let it sit there and hope a giant fish bites it. That's
Yeah.
what. And then you try to get it in the boat. That's the hard part.
well, and I've been with family members. So my dad's an avid fly fisherman.
Okay.
And I remember one time he took us and he had an angler, and we were out there, and I had snapped my hook off, but I just kept like casting. And my little brother looked at me, who was with me, and he said, "Man, I think I snapped my hook off." And I said, "Oh, I did about 5 minutes ago. I have no idea what to do if I catch a fish. Like, I do not want one of those. We're just making Dad happy." And so that's about my fishing experience.
Well, there you go, right there. All right. Well, part 2 of this show, the We Do Recover with Jared Miller, is sponsored by the Hilton Garden Inn. The Hilton Garden Inn, if you're traveling through southern Utah, you ought to give them a Google search. Just type in Hilton Garden Inn. And the Hilton Garden Inn takes really good care of us. I stay there most times when I come down. Amenities are great. The pool is fantastic. The staff is super nice to us. And so if you want a decent place to stay in St. George, give them a shot. Hilton Garden Inn's a pretty good place.
Yeah, absolutely. I've
Also
stayed there.
sponsored
I've stayed
by...
there. Recovery Strong. And Recovery Strong is all about fighting addiction and strengthening recovery. And what it does is it helps you fight the stigma around addiction by wearing your Recovery Strong gear, and you can recover out loud. So go to recoverystrong.com and use the promo code WeDoRecover15 to save 15% off your entire order. We appreciate Recovery Strong for sponsoring the podcast. I am
Great guys.
Yeah, great guys. I'm actually
seriously.
really good friends with Jared, who started up Recovery Strong years ago when he got sober.
Yeah.
And what they're about and what they do is pretty incredible. I've got a ton of their gear that
Yeah. They got some cool stuff.
they've got really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a good message.
It is a good message, and it's a good, be proud.
Yeah, well, I think
proud of it.
most of us suffered in silence for so long.
Yeah.
Like we're in the addiction. We're not telling anybody about it. We're not bringing it to the surface. We're not seeking help. For me, I kind of insist on recovering out loud today.
Yeah.
So it's a great way of doing that.
Yeah. We talked about that. Ryan and I were talking about that a little bit earlier about how, when you first get into recovery, sometimes you're a little timid about telling people. You don't want people to judge you and all that stuff. And But eventually you start to realize, listen, this is an accomplishment. This recovery thing is a giant accomplishment. It is nothing to be ashamed of. For sure, we're ashamed of the fact that we got addicted to drugs and, we try to hide in the closet and not have anybody discover us and all this stuff. But the truth is the things we're doing today, and we talked about this earlier because Ryan's relatively new in recovery, not brand new for sure, but maybe not everybody in his life knows that he's in recovery.
Yep.
No, and I think sometimes too, when you let people know that you're in recovery and what happened, they're relieved because they oftentimes think it's something else. Their mind just goes to worst case scenarios. Right. And when you actually start getting in recovery and doing the deal and you let people know what's going on, they're like, okay, finally, now there's something that we can address.
Yeah. Now we know why that guy was such a jerk.
Yeah.
He was high the whole time.
All my kids would tell you that. Absolutely.
My kids would tell you the same thing, although I'm not way better, but
yeah.
But I'm definitely a little better. I'm a different person than when I used to just come home and go up to my room and sack out on the couch because I was high.
Yeah, we progressed little by slowly, but we progress.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so we got Ryan to the point in his story where Ryan has a broken back, does not have surgery on it. Happens to have a lot of doctor friends, which is really convenient.
Super convenient.
Very similar sort of to my story. We don't want to tell my story on this podcast.
It's similar to mine as well.
But I knew a bunch of doctors. We just, it's super helpful, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to go out on the street and meet some guy who
I was
snuck heroin across in a balloon,
so
wherever
scared.
that balloon was, all that stuff.
Yeah.
We had good, clean sources of our
drugs.
drugs.
And it was okay because it came from a doctor. Right? Like in the cultural Utah.
That's a cultural Utah thing.
We
if my doctor prescribed it,
we're totally
it
good.
must be fine.
Yeah.
I'm taking something my doctor gave. He recommended it.
Right.
Like, why would I not take it? He recommended that.
Yeah.
I recommend that he recommends that again.
Yeah. Exactly.
Keep on recommending that.
Yeah. Let me help you make the decision, Doc.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Doc, I really need this.
It's not my fault he didn't write enough.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so you're starting to get some pills, pain pills from
and just like anybody else,
sources.
Right? Yeah, you get more and more and more, and it's not relieving the pain. It's your body calibrates to the new normal, and you're like, oh man, I'm not feeling that high.
Yep, not quite enough.
And it's not enough.
Right. Used to be good, but it's just not as good anymore.
Yeah, so I remember the doctor that came to me and said, man, like, you're maxed out. Like, you are maxed out. Like,
Whoa.
DEA will be all over me if I give you any more.
Whoa.
Yeah. And
Doc, you're killing me.
That was the first time I had, like, a serious conversation with myself, actually.
But
because the whole time I'm believing the BS in my head.
Sure. I'm in severe pain.
I'm in severe.
Gotta have this.
Yeah, yeah. And
everybody in my position would have just as many pain.
John and I have talked about this multiple times, like not knowing exactly if you're truly in pain.
Right.
Because at that point, it wasn't really about the pain. It was about chasing that high.
No question.
Right. So he's like, okay, here's your max. Like, and I remember going on this trip to Lake Powell, and it rattled in my head.
Okay.
Like
rattling in your head is the fact that a doctor has just told you you're taking too much.
Yeah.
Okay.
That there might actually be a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if DEA is involved.
Yeah. I don't want those guys. I don't want to know those guys.
Yeah. I don't want to know him, and I sure don't want him in trouble.
Sure.
For me.
Sure.
Right. So, in a moment of either complete stupidity or complete blessing, I took that bottle of brand new OxyContins full to the hilt.
Holy mackerel. How many?
Oh,
90?
Probably 90, yeah.
Whoa.
Right?
Okay.
And back to the houseboat by myself. I mean, I was with my whole family.
Took them all.
No, I didn't. I chucked them.
I know the story.
Yeah.
I was just pretending like I didn't.
In
You
the
chucked 'em
stupidity
in the
and
water.
blessing, sometimes those moments are one and the same.
Yeah. You chucked a bottle of maybe 90 OxyContin into Lake Powell.
Yeah, and some people are like, oh, man, do you know how much those would have been worth on the street? I don't care how much they're on the street.
Yeah.
That was
not
for
your
me.
Deal.
That was not.
That's not your deal.
Like, I'm not doing it for that.
Yeah, I'm not making money at
Yeah.
this. I'm paying money for these things.
My insurance is handling this.
What's that feeling
Again,
like?
not my story.
What's that feeling like as the bottle
Oh,
leaves
man.
your hand
Oh.
and it's now this far away?
Oh, man.
And it's you've now made a decision that you can't take back, right?
Oh my gosh! So
Did you think about jumping in?
oh, for sure.
Trying to
well,
dive
first of
after
all,
him and get to
I
him?
remember throwing it and immediately regretting it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Oh, crap.
immediately.
What have I done now?
Without knowing anything about detox, without knowing about the severity
Oh,
of
sure. You don't know what's going to happen.
of what my body's about to go through.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm probably going to be in pain, but
And
you
again-
don't even realize the
I had no
extent
idea
of what's going to happen now.
what that felt like.
Okay.
Okay, so I throw it in, and I'm like, oh no, I hope those float, and they don't.
Well,
Just so
but
anybody,
if it was an empty bottle, it would have floated.
it went
But
straight
with
to
90
the bottom.
OxyContin in it, it's headed down south.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I detoxed myself
Oh, at Lake Powell.
at Lake Powell
Oh.
for a
As
week.
bad as that sounds, I feel bad for the other people on the houseboat.
Oh, no question. No question. But Ryan was in pain.
Yeah, Ryan wasn't paid.
And detoxing like a
yeah,
mother.
yeah. I mean, so years later, I found out there's this thing called medical detox.
What?
Not in Lake Powell.
So what you're saying is here's a kid. Let me recap where we are so far. We have a kid that grew up fairly LDS, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not aware of what's going on in the world of drugs and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Got hooked on pain pills because of legitimate, very severe back pain.
Yeah.
Doctors are handing him scripts.
Right.
Doesn't know what's next.
And so you threw those in the lake. One of the things that I'd like to get to in your story is kind of what got you here now
Okay.
with the time that we have left.
Yeah, for sure.
What happened after that?
So threw him in the lake, detoxed myself, thought I was going to die, and then swore that off.
Miraculously didn't die, though.
Yeah, apparently it was touch and go there for a sec.
I
But
bet.
So happens we're kind of hard to kill sometimes.
yeah, no kidding. And so I went 5 years without just like shunning, like just I'm not even touching. I don't care if I have like a toothache. I don't care if I have like a major surgery. I don't want opiates.
Not really quite a decision to get into recovery, but a decision I'm not doing opiates
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah. So
Sounds
I'm
like.
like, okay, I
I don't know
wanna
anything
do
about
that.
recovery. I'm just not going to do this anymore.
Zero idea about recovery.
Okay.
Zero idea about the disease of addiction.
Okay.
Zero idea that I had triggered something.
I just
Right.
don't like the fact that I have to take these pain pills all the time.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, psychological low or, whatever you call it. I just felt like I'm not doing that ever again.
So you're able to pull that off for 5 years.
5 years.
Didn't take another opiate
Nope.
for 5 years. Okay.
And then I remember going to the liquor store for legitimate reasons for a recipe that.
Did you hear him say for legitimate reasons?
Yeah, we'll talk
Well,
about that later.
let's
let him keep going.
Yeah, we made this Japanese thing that required sake. Okay, and I'm like
Not to drink.
not to drink.
I'm with you.
But
For a recipe.
but something
A
triggered
recipe
a
for
recipe.
disaster.
Yeah,
I've been
exactly.
waiting on that line.
Yeah,
Sorry.
good one.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. When I got into the liquor store, I just remember thinking, I wonder what that tastes like. Like we're burning the alcohol out, but I wonder what it tastes like on its own.
Sure.
So, bought one bottle for the family,
Right.
and then bought
Second
one for
bottle
me.
in the back of the car.
Yeah, and remind yourself that I have no idea what a
Never
baseline
been drunk
is.
in your life.
Never had alcohol.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, I'm like
And how old were you?
35.
Okay.
Thank you. That's
going.
important.
No, I think that's an important point
Yeah.
too, because we have a lot of stories of people that started using drugs in high school.
Yeah.
That's the more common story.
Yeah.
It's a really common way to get hooked. Is I'm in high school, I'm in a crowd that uses drugs once in a while, and I wound up getting addicted.
Yeah.
This is a different path for sure.
A very different path. And I think that part of the path is that you're talking to somebody who had been successful, who had his own corporation for years,
Right.
and who had been pulling life off and somehow got sake to cook with and thought, I wonder what this
Let's
tastes
just
like.
taste some.
Yeah. And
The taste.
Yeah.
You probably were actually
Everybody
interested
loves
in
sake
what
for
it
the
tasted.
taste.
anybody
Right.
that's drank sake.
If there wasn't alcohol in sake, I'd just drink it straight because it's so delicious.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah, terrible taste.
Right. It's terrible. It's
But-
all terrible.
But the moment that you got that high again,
yeah.
it just triggered it.
Right.
It was
There
like,
it is.
there it is. That's the one I've missed the most, you know? And I drank the whole bottle. Had no idea.
First drink ever, you downed a bottle of sake.
The whole bottle.
Oh, that's a good start.
Yeah.
That's a way to start it.
And
out.
I remember
Go
thinking,
big.
What happened?
I remember thinking, wow, this is an amazing feeling.
Did your family recognize it?
I
Did they recognize
So,
something was wrong that night? Or
depending
did
on
pull
who
it
you
off?
ask, it you know, a lot of people just thought, you know, super tired. Again, the understanding is that you're coming from a place where nobody understands addiction.
Right. Your family's as naive about it as you are because
Yeah,
that's
like-
where you came from.
Alcohol was the furthest from their minds.
Right.
Okay. So then I proceeded to buy as much as I wanted and tried to calibrate it myself. Again, I'm not going to friends' parties and saying, hey, how much should I drink? I'm trying to figure this out myself.
Sure.
Right. So I do that, you know, in the cover of darkness, when I'm at work, when nobody can see me, you know, just everywhere. It was bad.
All the while not
bad.
taking a pain pill.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
This is such a cool
You
and
got to have
interesting story.
boundaries.
This is such a cool story because we talked about this on this podcast last week about, you know, people that use methamphetamine to get off of heroin.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, congratulations, you're now a meth addict.
The devil you
You're
know
not
from the
using
devil you
heroin,
don't. Yeah.
but you're a meth addict now.
yeah.
Like, here you go. You're not taking pain pills. You've sworn that that's probably not a good idea for you, and you start drinking.
Yeah. Well, alcohol is legal.
Right.
So,
Right.
you know, I'm all the time going to church and
Sure.
checking the boxes there. But
Sure.
then I've got this problem with alcohol now.
Okay.
Right. And even though alcohol's also shunned by the community,
Sure.
it's readily available.
Yeah, it's not hard to find.
And
You don't have to find a doctor to
I'm
give
not
it to
putting
you.
a doctor's DEA in trouble.
Absolutely.
You know,
You can walk in there and show them an ID and
I'm only-
walk out with whatever you want.
yeah, only hurting myself.
Right.
Right. So all those lies that we tell ourselves in the midst of our addiction,
Yeah.
only hurting myself.
Right.
And so I justified it, lied to myself, lied to others, and just like any other alcoholic, it became too much.
Okay.
It became people in my life at the time knew something was wrong, but it wasn't until my wife actually saw a bottle
Okay.
that I left in the car.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah,
How does that feel?
shameful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and shameful doesn't feel like the right word.
Okay.
Like immense shame.
Okay.
Crying, trying to say that it's not mine, trying to say it's a friend's, all those things.
Yeah.
Right.
Terrible feeling.
And then realizing that I don't know anybody that knows of this except for my wife. And so let's just keep it between us.
Sure, don't tell anybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bury it.
Yeah.
Bury it.
Yeah, I'll just stop drinking.
Well,
We'll bury it.
Again, not thinking that I'm an alcoholic, just
Sure.
thinking that I'm
You
doing
just
it for
stop.
fun.
I'll just
yeah,
stop.
just stop.
I can stop.
Yeah.
Anytime I want to.
Yeah. And apparently it doesn't work like that.
Well, okay.
So
Tell me how it works then.
So
Yeah.
what happens is you get this shame cycle that we're pretty much familiar with, and you isolate. Your friend group becomes those friends that are more enablers and less of the ones that will hold you accountable,
Okay.
right? And you kind of distance yourself from the ones that are going to take your tool away.
Which means to me you can't be close to your wife during this time.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not good.
You have to pull away from your wife
Yeah.
because she's not going to enable.
Well, she's definitely not okay with it, right?
Sure.
And so it's, and not only is she not okay with it, but she doesn't want the kids to see me in that state.
Absolutely.
And so it's, all the things, fights and
Well, and frankly, she doesn't want the neighbors to know either.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It's shameful to her too.
Exactly.
Right.
So
we'll just keep it quiet.
we'll keep it quiet. We'll bury it, like John said. And so this went on for 7 years,
Still drinking.
still drinking.
But your wife thinks you're not for the most part.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, it was when I came home drunk or when I'd pass out so that it wasn't like so bad. Like if I'm just asleep, then
I'm just tired, huh?
I'm just tired. Like
Yeah.
it was
I
a
worked
stressful
really
day.
hard today.
Yeah.
I remember being in treatment at one time, and I told the counselor that I didn't think my wife knew about like all of that stuff, and he just looked at me and laughed. And he goes, "Come on, brother." He goes, "Really? You think she doesn't know? Just because we haven't said it doesn't mean that they don't know something's up."
Yeah.
Right. Well, and when they finally hear it, sometimes it's almost a relief.
It's a
'cause
relief.
It's like, well,
It's
I
like
kinda,
getting
I
in
kinda knew
recovery.
it. I kind of knew it, but I didn't really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was, this went on and,
Okay, you're
and
still drinking.
and then,
Keep it on the table.
seeing therapists, trying to get it, first of all, trying to do it by myself.
Okay.
Turns out it's hard.
Okay.
Doing it by yourself is hard.
If you're a real alcoholic, it's
It's impossible.
next to
almost.
impossible.
Yeah. And so, it wasn't until John, who I knew when he was in his addiction.
Okay. So you knew
And
John when you were sober, and
When
he
I was sober,
using.
John's in
We're
his
actually
addiction.
neighbors.
Yeah.
Same neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So John shows up.
At your house,
Yeah, and at the church,
at the church. Okay.
and I'm like,
So it's not.
wait, that's John Red?
at the church, like for sacrament meeting or for.
Yeah, he actually
Elvis Corn
he
basketball.
shared his story in.
And if it's Sunday and just
Oh, really?
a couple, yeah.
Okay.
So-
Interesting.
So I remember thinking I need to talk to him, right? Because I could not. I don't know anybody in addiction. I don't know anybody in recovery.
Don't know
I
what
have
to-
no
don't
idea
know
what
what
these
to do.
things are.
Okay.
Right? Here's a guy that I saw, and I literally had to drive him home one time because he was so intoxicated he couldn't even walk.
Which John doesn't remember.
John doesn't remember this,
Yeah.
right?
But John has to trust that it probably happened.
Well, I'm certain it did.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm looking at this and I'm going, well, he might know a secret. He might know a tip, right? And then John starts meeting with me and I tell him, hey man, like I'm an alcoholic. And he's like, I was waiting for the wave of shame.
Yeah,
the wave
gonna.
of shock.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Okay, John, I'm putting this out there.
Terrible.
It's really bad. And he just smiles and he goes, okay.
Yeah. Not surprised. I didn't say that, but not surprised.
Yeah. He just says, okay, what do we do from here?
Yeah, you expect him to freak out.
I was like, wait, what?
What do you mean? Okay.
Yeah, this
This
is
is
not
not
okay.
okay.
Like you don't know how many people
Nothing
are
okay
going to
about
know
this.
about this, And so, God bless John, because he kept showing up. And this, this is the hard part,
Which is good.
because if he didn't, I'd still be out there
Yeah, or dead.
or dead. For the longest
And
time,
I'm not sure which would be worse.
yeah. For the longest time, I also thought John was full of BS because I couldn't fathom somebody taking away my tool. That's how I referred to it, as my tool, because
Sure.
happy, sad, this would always get me back,
Right.
Right. So I didn't like John for a bit.
Right.
Um,
It doesn't matter what's going on in your life. A pain pill helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're sad. Pain pill helps. You're happy. Oh, I'm happier.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. There's just no in betweens.
Right.
So he's just like, hey, let's go to a meeting, and went to an AA meeting and could not admit to myself that I was an alcoholic. So and then finally I got a DUI.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
That's not your typical drinker, by the way.
Yeah, that's not okay.
That's a sign.
Yeah.
If you get a DUI, you got an issue.
There's
Yeah.
something there.
Yeah.
So then I was going to be serious about it.
Okay.
Okay. I was going to admit that I was an alcoholic, and met with the probation officer, kept getting busted, even had an Intoxilock UAs that came out dirty, and never got sent to jail. So I was gaming the system. Finally, I just gave up. I gave up. I surrendered to the program of AA. And I remember texting John and saying, John, I need help. I need rehab. And he came over that night, met with my family, met with me, and said, hey, man, I've called a lot of places. John was working at a center at that time. Like it wasn't about
The ranch?
where I went. No, at that time, Spirit Mountain.
No, just
Okay.
another place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And so I went to I met with John, and we came up with a plan, and I had some things to tie up, And John's like, you're not going to show up in 30 days. But at that point, I was done. I was done. First step, life had become unmanageable.
And that wasn't about betting against Ryan. That's
No.
just doing this long enough, it's hard to bet against this disease.
Yeah, sure.
We know when somebody makes a plan for 30 days, it's like, oh man, you just watch the world fall apart in 30 days for them.
Yeah.
Time and time again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're close to out of time, and I've done something that I always do that Jared keeps me on track with, and spent a lot of time talking about addiction. We only have a minute left. Talk to us about the blessings of not being addicted.
Okay,
of
so
recovery.
So when I talk to sponsees about recovery and what it's like being in this newfound spiritual relationship with my higher power, my God, it's the most amazing life. Even before, when I thought I knew who God was, I could have defined him for you. Now I just realize that I just trust it. I don't have to know. I don't have to define it. I just trust how I feel.
That's beautiful.
And, being in rehab got me some tools to get me into that, what I refer to as the God flow. The ability to not be in the results and just do my program one day at a time.
Well, we are out of time, my friend. That's a beautiful story. Thanks for being on, Ryan Brown. Ryan's opening a treatment center soon.
Yeah.
We didn't get to that because I got caught up in your story,
That's
but
okay.
thanks for sharing it with us. John, thanks for co-hosting.
Thank you for joining us
glad to
today
be
on
here.
We Do
Thank
Recover with Jared Miller.
Help us spread our message of hope. Like, comment, and share.
If you have any topics or ideas for future shows, please share that on our Facebook page.
That Facebook page is We Do Recover with Jared Miller. If you or a loved one needs help, please reach out to us. Again, thank you for listening.
Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn. This has been a production from a podcast studio.